All right, welcome. This is our bi-monthly live cast. We have with us today. This is our bi-monthly. We have with us today Lee from the Cold War Prepper and the founder of Live Free USA, James Jones. And our topic for tonight is why build mutual assistance groups and some advice on how to do it. Now, James is one of the original people putting together these kind of organizations. So we'll start with him and get his ideas.
So clarify that question a little bit more.
Why should people build mutual assistance groups instead of trying to go it alone?
Well, yeah, and by the way, that's kind of what Live Free has been about. Like a lot of people mistake us for being a little survival group that just it's us and we're getting ready to go do what we're going to do. And then you don't have regular meetings because that's not what we do. We help other people have regular meetings, okay? And we tie things together. That's what we do. You can't survive alone. That's one of our founding principles. The hunker and the bunker stuff is it's just crazy. You can't be that hermit. Maybe for a short term, yes, you should be prepared. But you need to be interdependent. You need to be independent, but you need to be interdependent. We can't have all the skills ourselves. We can't have all the equipment we need ourselves. Maybe to get through a tornado, maybe to get through a flood or something. If you're really prepared, you might be able to get through for a short term. But we're talking about things like wartime, war zone, financial collapse, general breakdown of law and order, those kind of bigger things that last for months. You can't possibly think that, you got to stay up 24 hours a day to guard your house. You can't do that alone. So the stronger your community is, and I'm talking about two different types of community, the community you live in, like I live in this town, okay, but also your survival and prepper community, if you will. So you have to build that community, and it's not easy to do. It takes time and patience. Believe me, I mean, this hair would be gray regardless. But yeah, it takes time and patience. And unfortunately, I've always compared it's like herding cats, okay? I mean, the people have got all these different ideas, and unfortunately, you have to sort out the wheat from the chaff. You got people that come in there with we're going to dominate and our political views or our religious views or what. No, that's not what this is about, okay? It's just keeping good people and responsible citizenship so that we could get through these hard times. And you have to stay on mission. Our mission creep is one of my big problems. I watch these organizations, they start out being preppers or survivalists, and then they start getting into politics. And as soon as they get into politics, everybody starts arguing, So anyhow, the essence of it is that, yes, you have to work with your community. I was just talking with a guy I was at a gun show today. And now gun shows are depends on how you think about it, but most of the people there are very responsible, great people. Occasionally you get a few flaky ones there, of course, naturally, like you do in any group, okay? But generally, it's a target-rich environment. We meet a lot of people there that are on board with what we're about. But this, you have to be out there. And I ran into some people that were in the Boy Scouts and they wanted some help from us to help them teach the Boy Scouts some skills. We ran into some people in fact, I ran into the guy that founded the Northern Indiana Civilian Emergency Response Team. And I was on that too. And we used to go to the same EMT classes. Those are the people you want to network. And he wasn't all like, oh, you guys are survivalists. He understood we're all on the same page. But that's what you can't be afraid to discuss these things and be open about it. Another example, last week I built a cannon, by the way, which I actually have a 1-inch Revolutionary War cannon that I built myself from scratch with no kit or anything, okay? And I brought it to a 250th anniversary event. And I'm sitting there talking to these people, and the next thing I said, well, I wrote a couple of books, and it's kind of a good opening thing that I use, I wrote a couple of books. I'm not bragging, but I got open conversations. And then, oh, this and that and the other thing. And then, oh, yeah, they're about survival. And, oh, I got this pack. Oh, I did this. Oh, I'm doing that. Oh, well, I got books about that. Oh, and next thing you know, I'm picking up some people that actually want to get involved, because they're the ones that are out there. Now, the ones that aren't out there, they're hiding in their basement, not telling anybody, but they're not part of the community, and they're not going to make it long term. Those people that you meet at events, like at Crime Watch meetings, at community events, that those are the people you want. They're also very busy. They're also already involved in stuff. So you got to kind of pry them away. It's like fishing. They pull them up a little bit to get them involved in whatever you're involved in. But yeah, that's my take on your question.
How about you, Lee? What are your thoughts?
The smallest unit in the Army is the individual soldier. And in basic training, you start from there and go forward. You always have a battle buddy, because even in the Army, we realize that the least effective size unit is a 2-man unit. It's you and your buddy. He's going to take care of you. You're going to take care of him. You've got somebody watching your back. So realizing that you can't do it alone, you've got to have somebody covering your back 24 hours a day as you're covering their back. There's no way that anybody can do it alone. You've got to sleep sometime. And when your eyes are closed, nobody's got your back. But if there's 2 of you, you can watch the other guy's back while he's sleeping, and he can watch yours while you're sleeping. There comes a point of exhaustion. When we do this, you get tired of the same routine. You start slipping up. And if another person can observe that and notice it and bring it to your attention, you can fix it. If you're alone, nobody's giving you those warnings that you're falling into a bad habit. And by pure boredom, you're starting to lose the skills, knowledge, and ability you need to survive. So you have to have and I recommend larger than just a 2-man unit, larger than just a battle buddy. We have 7 family members, and then beyond that, 8 extended people in our group. But how you get those people is really important. Remember that in the United States, the average marriage only lasts 8 years. You've got the honeymoon period, the first year where neither partner does anything wrong. And then at the end of the first year, everything you do is wrong until you adapt to it. And that's part of the marriage process, is adapting to it. Same thing with the MAG. You're going to have some enamor when you first get together until you start learning a little bit more about each other. And you may find some things that you like and don't like, whether you can tolerate them, adapt to them, accept them, or whatever. And that's why you have to form your MAG now if you anticipate having something happen in the future. Because you want to have that person you can really totally trust while you're asleep. You're really vulnerable. There's that old joke. The guy is really respectful to his wife, and they asked the wife, they said, well, how come he's so respectful to you? And she says, I don't know. He said, oh, the first week we were married, she told me, don't forget, you always go to sleep before I do. And, so that kind of is a reminder that things happen when you're asleep. So I think anybody who thinks they can do it alone, Rambo doesn't exist. And James can remember, when we've been at this long enough to where, when we talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis, we were building fallout shelters, and we were planning on being inside these for 2 weeks. And, you're in a cramped area. You've got the odors of body fluids and solids being discharged, and body sweat and everything else. And you're going to get on each other's nerves. I mean, it's going to be a physical, mental, emotional challenge. And you've got to work through that before you need to rely on each other, so that you don't have that as another impediment to your relationship. And so we had this thing to where everybody was kind of dependent upon that. We accepted it. And then along came this movie called Rambo. And when Rambo came out, the entire community kind of started to diverge. And We had called ourselves survivalists up until that time. And Rambo kind of changed that genre of survivalism. And that's when we started to break up basically into what we might call three different groups. We had the preparedness group, we had the survivalist group, and then we had the homesteading group. And so the preparedness people of today are basically the survivalist people pre-Rambo. Okay. And the survivalist people of today are those who think that they're going to go out and Rambo and take from the preparedness people. So you've got to find out, where does that other person, where do those other people, what are their mindsets? How is this relationship going to incorporate itself? How are we going to adjust to each other? So the longer you know each other, the closer you are, the more things you have in common, the better off you're going to be.
I got two good stories. Okay. One, well, our organization started as a sports club. Okay. It really did. And we got into, well, how do you survive doing these sports? And it was high risk sports, rock climbing, river rafting, caving. Well, in those, all the ideal number, you don't go into a cave, you don't climb a mountain unless there's three, because one person has to stay with the injured person and one person has to go for help. Or two people can carry the injured person out. But two people, okay, now what are you going to do? You're going to leave the person there in the cave and crawl out and hope that maybe you get back to him? Or are you going to stay with him and hope that help comes? But with three was the ideal number. Not only that, but sociologically, three is a much better number to operate with and organize with. And of course, survival is a high risk sport, more or less. So we always settled that your ideal is not to have just two, because one of you could have something happen to them, or you could argue. When you have three, there's a way to balance the social pressures. I took some courses in business management about three. We talked about three balancing plus and minus relationships. I won't get into that. But and the other thing, besides three being an ideal number up to build on, you can build another group of three and another group of three. But to tell you a story about a marriage, okay? Here's the way to guarantee whether your marriage is going to work or not. 3 weeks after I got married, I took my wife on a river rafting trip. I didn't tell her that. I told her we were going to go down the river, and we're drifting down the river, the Wolf River in Wisconsin. And she said, "What's that noise?" I said, "Well, that would be the first set of rapids." we had to work. I mean, literally work to get through those rapids. Row, stop, back. And we came through that, and she didn't kill me. So the marriage lasted, but that was my test. She always tells that story. She said, "This guy told me, didn't tell me there was going to be rapids and a waterfall, actually."
Oh, wow.
But anyhow, that was it. She was tough, and she adapted, and she didn't kill me. She hit me with the oars a couple of times, but that was understandable. But yeah, but three is a good number to work with your group. If you can get a third party and you all get along, it for all kinds of organizations, at least three is the basic number you really want to work toward, in my opinion.
Well, what do you think is a good group size? I mean, what size of group would you be aiming for? How many people is too many people? How many people is the right amount of people? Where is that line at?
Well, you can get too big. I can tell you that right now. But if you have a mission outside of just saving up a bunch of stuff and surviving the next disaster, if you have a mission outside of that, you can continue to give people jobs. Like, we got people that work on the gun shows. We got people that are working on Camp Independence. We got people doing all kinds of different things. And you can assign, all those people, if you don't keep them busy, if they don't have an assignment or a job, or they don't feel like they're needed, good people will find some other place that needs them. Okay. I always use the comparison of the Jehovah's Witnesses. They come on your door, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, nobody ever joins the Jehovah's Witnesses because they pound on your door, but it keeps the Jehovah's Witnesses busy. It keeps them in Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what it's about. You have to understand that that's part of what it's about, is keeping all your people busy on the mission, even though sometimes they're not achieving as much as you'd like. You don't, whatever you do, however big you get, don't fail to recognize, like I have these little certificates, that I give out to people for service to the organization, helping your community. That, yeah, it's only a piece of paper that I can print out on my computer, but you know what? It's appreciated. Okay, thank you. Thanks for helping us with the gun show. Boom. This is this year's best member of the year award, whatever. That's appreciated. Don't take any of those volunteers for granted. And you can build, but at some point, yeah, you have to subdivide. We've very seldom had that problem of getting too big, okay? But we have expanded, but not in that way. So I'll let Lee.
That's actually an excellent point, and it's something that's often overlooked. There are all of these plans on how to prepare for SWAG, like the 5 C's, the 10 C's, but it all comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. And what people, when they're planning, seem to forget that love and companionship is part of that baseline, the bottom of that pyramid. And when somebody does something and helps somebody else, whether they want the acknowledgement or not, they ought to get it. You ought to let them know that they're appreciated and that their help is needed.
The other thing is, I'm kind of an organization freak, so I'd love to have this big organization chart with everybody in these little jobs. But lots of times people, well, yeah, I know you need that, but I like to do this.
Yeah.
Let them do that. Okay. Even if you didn't need it done before, let them do what they do best. Let them do what they enjoy best, and fit it into your organizational plan. As long as it isn't blowing up something.
I agree with that too. That's kind of related to another question I have, and that is, well, another point that I have, and that is, you can't have all the skills. Like, for instance, I can build you a website and I can fix your gun. I got a bike over here that needs to be repaired. I had no clue what to do with it, none whatsoever. I need somebody who knows how to fix bikes. It expands beyond that. I mean, you need complementary skill sets. So I can do first aid. I've had stop the bleed training, so I can do the basic trauma management. But after that, somebody's got to come along with better skills to make sure that injured person makes it through, because I just don't have that expansive of medical skill set. I need somebody else with more. And if you look behind me, you see all those books. I mean, I do a lot of studying on a lot of subjects, but there's only a handful of them I'm good at.
Yeah.
And I think that's sick. And I think that's just like, you got to sleep sometime. There's going to be stuff you don't know how to do. Somebody else in your assistance group, they need to be able to pick up that slack.
When we formed the group, we were a gun club, actually. We were a sports club, then we were a gun club. Okay. Yes. And every third person was an NRA, including myself, was an NRA certified rifle and pistol instructor. On every third person. And I thought to myself, well, if we're going to do all this shooting, somebody's going to get shot. And so I think what we need is medics, but people don't like to be, for some reason, they don't like to be medics. They want to go bang, bang, that they don't want to, But anyhow, that's why I decided to become an EMT, take a Red Cross first aid, then become an EMT and get some more people, because we needed that skill. Now, One of the things that we've done in the past, and chapters should do if they can, is sponsor some member to go to a class. Go get your money together, say, well, it costs $200 to stop the bleed class or to go to the expo or whatever, and send that person to take that training. And then, but the obligation is you come back and teach us.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways you can build your organization's skill sets. Yeah, some of these classes are kind of expensive or time consuming, but if you all put your money together and say, hey, Charlie, look, we'd love to say, do you want to go to this class? Yeah, but I can't afford it. Well, but then you got to come back and teach us everything you know. So that's something that you can think about that we've done in the past.
What about the
Speaking of which, it just so happens that along with these other two gentlemen, I'm on the board of directors for Live Free. and I'm in charge of training. So if anybody watching this video has a skill set that they would like to promote through us or provide that kind of training to us so that we can recommend your training after we've given it some careful qualifications to our chapters, please contact me at Cold War Prepper at outlook.com. Let me know what you have to offer, and how we can help you with your business while you simultaneously help us provide high quality training to the people who need it out there with our subchapters.
That's a good point. Actually, excellent point. And actually, it's important to define what is a survival instructor. Almost anybody, anything that anybody knows about self-defense, survival, or self-reliance. We've had farmers come in and teach us how to butcher chickens. We've had master gardeners. We've had people teach how to do canning. We have people that teach how to self-defense skills. We have all of those. If they can teach them and teach them well, we'll certify them, because there's no such description of a survival instructor. Survival is about almost every aspect of life. We've had people come in and teach about, one guy worked for the water department and he taught us how to purify water. Okay.
Amen. Amen.
Wow. So it's a broad, it's a broad area of teaching. I know some outfits are out there making big money certifying survival trainers or survival instructors. I see it all. And I tried to write an exam one time and I said, wait a minute, be 8,000 questions. I still wouldn't cover everything that's related. So I wrote my 10 principles. But yeah, it's a broad thing. If they can teach it and they're willing to teach other people a skill that will help them survive in an emergency or become more self-reliant, then they're qualified.
And it can be as simple as cooking rice and beans.
Yep. Almost anything. Good point.
And being able to cook it under adverse conditions as well.
Amen. Yeah.
How about the question of how do you build trust?
Well, if we go back to most philosophers, we talk about Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Socrates, Plato, trust is there to be taken away. A recent book, and this was back in the 1990s, I'm going to say 1995, by Dr. Stephen Covey, called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. He talks about what he calls an emotional bank account. The minute we meet, I give you a bank account with, let's say that you've made a penny deposit in it because of something you've not done nice to me. So we spend time, over time, putting deposits into the other person's emotional bank account. And, once you make a withdrawal, that it depends upon the size of withdrawal. If it's a substantial withdrawal, trust is broken. It may not ever be regained. I told my daughter when she was growing up, don't ever do anything that you can't undo. And there's, you can undo a couple things to your body you can't undo, like a tattoo or something like that, that gives you a way to a belief or something. You never know. You may change your beliefs as you get older. The other thing is, be careful with your words, because a word spoken harshly can never be retrieved. So put yourself in a situation with these people and find out, how are they going to react under pressure? And are they going to be even-headed, or are they going to be harsh? Now, occasionally, all of us have faults. I have faults. I've reacted emotionally to bad situations and wish I hadn't, but that's how it goes. And once the trust is gone, just move on, find somewhere else.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That was great. I finally ran into somebody who read Stephen Covey besides me. It was required reading in corporate, okay? The corporation, we had to go classes with Stephen Covey, and then another guy who had applied it to safety. And I borrowed some of that stuff from my 10 principles, applied it among other things. But yeah, that great principles. And as far as trust is concerned, yeah, you have to build. Trust has to be built. You don't just meet somebody and trust them. Okay. But as you work together and and do what you say you're going to do. One of my mantras, I always do what I say I was going to do. If I didn't say I wasn't, if I didn't say I was going to do it, and somebody says, well, you didn't do it. I said, did I ever say I was going to do that? You just jumped to a collusion of that. But generally, I try to do, and if I can't do it, I will explain why I couldn't do it. And you need people like that are reliable. Reliability is a trust in itself. I'm going to be at the gun show at 10 o'clock. You don't show up. Okay, that's it. Trust is gone now. If you called and you said, yeah, my car had an accident or something, okay, first time, second time, unless we know what happened, they start to get questionable. I will say that everybody we've got in our little organization here in this area, we can trust them to do what they say they're going to do. Now, there's stuff that we would like them to do that they're not going to do. And that's okay, because we understand they're not going to do that. One of the things was, I think I've said this probably a dozen times before, and I think it was a libertarian meeting years and years ago that I heard this term, okay? And it was like, there's two kinds of failure, or there's benign, and then there's evil, or inertia, okay? So benign inertia is you ask for volunteers, and nobody volunteers, and nobody's going to help. Okay, I know I got to deal with myself, or we're not going to do it. Then there's evil inertia. We run into a lot. There are people in this world that will not say no, and that get off by saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then we say, oh, wow, he's great. When they get the pat on the back, they have no intention of doing it. Okay, so you build up. I've had things where we had this one guy who was going to do gun shows. So I pull all these books and put them in tote bins and put all the literature together and stuff. And then, I can't do it that weekend. Well, again, I put a whole lot of effort in, and it happened twice. And then what's it? But that's evil inertia. So those kind of people, you got to get out. If you pay your dues, fine, pay your dues. We'll collect the money, but we're not going to involve you in anything. There's people that you just can't trust to do what they say they're going to do. Most important thing is reliability.
Now, as you're developing your mag, there can be different levels of trust. So our mag here, I told you it's 15 people. There are 7 that I consider family. And so those 7, let's call the inside of my house the A zone. Okay. Those 7 people are the only people who are allowed inside the A zone. Now there's 8 more in our mag. Now they are in our mag. I trust them. I don't trust them into the A zone, but I do trust them into the B zone. So that's basically the yard to my house. Okay. Anybody else who comes along afterwards is a C zone member of the mag. So that means you're out there to prove yourself that that I can trust you to admit you into the B zone. And over time, you may even move from the B zone into the A. But you're not going to. When we say trust, we're not talking about your implicit, I give you everything, I'm going to close my eyes and go to sleep and I trust you. We're not there. It has to be built, as James said, it has to be built over time. You may have different levels of trust as long as people know where they stand. Here's one of the biggest destroyers of trust, and that is being very, very explicit in your expectations. If I tell you, I expect you to go collect firewood, okay? My definition of what collecting firewood may not be the same definition you have of firewood. So if you come back with a whole bunch of kindling and I wanted logs to be split, that were 24 inches long, you cut into 24-inch lengths, you're not going to meet my expectations. And a trust is not going to be there because you did not meet my expectations. But that's not your fault. That's my fault because I didn't tell you exactly what I wanted you to do. So that I find that's one of the biggest destroyers of trust, is that we are not clear in our expectations of what we want from the other person. So
you read military history, there's total military disasters that happen because of lack of clear communication as to what the colonel and the other general or that division was supposed to do. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Yes, good communication. So we're covering some good stuff here, definitely.
Well, there's another side of building trust, and that is learning to understand what you're seeing when you talk to people. It's why it's so important when you're building trust that you meet in person, so that
Well, one of
you're right there. The body leaks information without you even knowing it through your body language, through your facial expressions, and most especially through micro expressions. So if you study these, and you can find good books, there's even some programs on micro expressions that you can get on Udemy to help you understand the information that people are giving you. These are, especially micro expressions, these are things that happen almost instantaneously and then get covered up. But you can't stop your body from doing it. It always gets out there. Give you an example. If you've ever had somebody walk into a room where you are and you instantly don't trust them, you instantly feel like you're uncomfortable, that is because their body language and their facial expressions, their micro expressions are leaking out, and you're understanding it. You just don't realize you're understanding it. You know something's going on there. You just don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's a good way to build trust in somebody else, is to learn how to identify these little clues as to what's going on in people's heads. There was a TV show a number of years ago called Lie to Me that was based on the work of Dr. Paul Ekman. And he spent years going all over the world studying different cultures and found the microexpression signs were the same no matter where in the world he was. Now, the TV show makes it sound like, you become a human lie detector. Generally, you're not seeing deception. You're seeing a lack of comfort in what somebody's saying. Another good, for instance, is if somebody is speaking and they're not moving their hands, they have little confidence in what they're saying, which could mean they're being dishonest. Or it could mean they just have anxiety issues and don't speak well, but it still tells you something about what you're seeing. People just who don't put any controls on it are confident in what they're saying. Their hands move, their faces move, their heads aren't still, their hands move while they're speaking. That's just one of the clues you can pick up. If you understand these clues, it's easier to build trust in another person because you get a little bit of a clue right there from the beginning who you're dealing with.
Really good book on the subject is by Gavin De Becker, and it's called The Gift of Fear.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get a copy of that. There's also a guy named Joe Navarro, was a behavioral specialist with the FBI, who has put out a number of good books on the subject. My favorite, the easiest to understand, is What Everybody Knows, and it is all about body language. And I would advise anybody who wants a better ability to understand and build trust in people to read that book. Most of Dr. Ekman's work is very, very, very complicated, but he has written one or two books for the layman to help you understand facial and micro expressions as well. And I have copies of all of those.
Yeah, if you notice, when the Arabic countries get into negotiations, they always wear sunglasses. And the reason is because the pupils will contract or dilate depending upon the amount of truthfulness in the position that the person's stating. So that nobody can read their pupil dilation, they wear sunglasses. And that way you don't know when they're telling the truth and when they aren't.
Now, even like over video like this, you can see facial expressions, but you're not going to pick up micro expressions over video, which is why it's important to have in-person meetings, to be in the same space with that person.
Yes, it is.
And spend time talking to them.
Absolutely. Well, John, a practical point, though, we kind of went over, but organizationally, that's always been a question of, well, we're supposed to reach out. If you don't reach out, attrition will destroy your organization eventually. People will drop out, they'll move, they'll get divorces, whatever. So you got to get new people in, but you also got to have, and I hate even to use the word, but OPSEC. You want to have some security for where your food is, where your evacuation plan is. And we've always there's three levels. we're a public service organization, and our chapters should be a little public involved in their community. So on that level, you're meeting people who come to meetings and who come to events and socialize with you and take the classes and all that. You have that whole level to get to know these people. And then you have a second level, which is within your organization, helping you organize your events, helping you maybe make a group purchase for the whole group, whatever. That's okay. But then your plan for evacuation, for surviving in your block or your family, that's the third level. You don't have to let everybody in. That's where you have your security level, and that can be just 3 people or 6 people or a family group, or a group of 3 or 4 or 5 people. That's probably the ideal inner survival group, because you're not going to organize 30 people and evacuate. You're not going to have 30 people in a compound and in a block or whatever. You're going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe a couple families. You're going to survive the combat or the fire or the world war situation or whatever. You're going to be in that little group. So that's the group you need to identify in the core. But you need to have an outer core, which is the organization which does all kinds of things and buys stuff and works together. And then an outer core, which is the group that comes to your meetings, your educational meetings and your public service meetings, from which you can then pick and choose. Let's work on that guy. Really seems to know his stuff. He's been coming to 3 or 4 meetings. His head seems to be on straight. Let's go and move. We've done that with our organization here. This guy really seems to have his head on straight. Let's work with him. Let's invite him to a meeting or whatever online. But yeah, and you're right. Face to face is much better than this, and this is much better than email, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Texting
or just voice conversations.
Not just voice conversation. Although when I was in business management, they taught us that texting, which was then typing, of course, was the worst possible communication method.
Yes, it is.
But it's still what a lot of people use. But you can't, Oh, by the way, AI. Okay, I just wrote up an article on street defense, and urban survival, and it insists that when I refer to street smarts, it keeps changing it to street sense. I wish I could turn off AI, okay? Because it insists that I'm wrong, but the term is street smarts, not street sense. So AI drives me crazy.
Let me go back to a question you asked earlier, Rick, and that was, what is the ideal size?
Mm-hmm.
So Wharton Business School promulgated back in the 1990s and early 2000s, up until the time I retired from business, that the ideal amount of subordinates that a leader had was between 4 and 7. So you want to have somewhere between 4 and 7 subordinates. They don't think you can effectively manage more than 7 people, but they think that a group shouldn't be any smaller than 4 or 5 people. So that's kind of that sweet spot there. If we take a look at that and translate it into what the military has done, every military commander has 4 operational unit support underneath of them. So a company commander has 4 platoon leaders. A battalion commander has 4 company commanders. A brigade commander has 3 or 4 battalion commanders. So it's always at that level. Now we add to that with some staff people. So in the Army, there's usually 5 staff officers. You have personnel, then you have intelligence, operations, supply and logistics, and then civil affairs. So you're going to have these different types of specialists who are going to be able to help you in certain situations with certain knowledge. But you always have those 4 direct reports that are operational. And so I think that's kind of the sweet spot, is we want to have somewhere to where if I have a group of, let's say, 12 people, I'm going to have 4 that are going to report into me. And then each of those 4 are going to have 3 that report into them. And that's going to be how we're going to try to organize as far as our numbers. Once you get above, say, 15 people, you want to consider splitting up, because it might be a little bit too big to manage.
You know,
Okay, well,
that's ideal. Of course, the military has the ability to pick and choose and tell people, well, you're going to do this and you're going to do this, and this guy reports to that guy. When you're dealing with survivalists and preppers, they're already very individualistic. So it's a little harder. You're never going to get that ideal organization. You just try to, but
That's
those
why
are
you
good
call them their
tools.
groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't tell them this guy's in charge. You tell them you're a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thought that that you triggered there, is how much can we draw from how the military organizes and apply it to what we do? Because logistics are going to be different, and like Jim said, people, especially in this community, are very individualistic. I know I don't like to be told what to do. That's why the job I have now is so great, because there's nobody to tell me what to do.
The substance may be different, but the role remains the same. If I tell you you're in charge of supplies, it doesn't matter whether we have a Walmart or not. You're still in charge of supplies and making sure that there's equal distribution, and that you let us know when there's shortages. And so that supply function is consistent whether or not you have a source of resupply. So I think the function itself is consistent throughout the military preparedness environment. How you perform that function is going to be different.
Yeah, you have to build your organization around the people you have rather than making the people you have fit into the organization. It's a lot harder to do, but that's kind of the rule.
Never having been in the military, except for a short stint in Civil Air Patrol when I was a teenager, I don't have that firsthand experience. But it seems to me that, as I understand the Army, you have a squad, which is 6 people.
No, the fire team is 5 people, and 2 fire teams is a squad, which is around. It depends whether it's mech or leg, but it can be anywhere from 9 to 11.
So that kind of feels like the right number of people, right there to work immediately together. And then once you exceed that number, that 10 to 12, you start organizing the next into another squad, so to speak, and then figure out how you guys are how those 2 groups are going to coordinate. So let's go a completely different direction. Let's take the way the Amish build barns. All the families show up, they build the barn together, and then they move on to the next one, or they go back to their families and they handle their business there. Kind of the same thing. If there's a big project, you pull those 2 groups together, the 2 groups work together, finish the project, and then go back to being their groups and just make sure they're still communicating, coordinating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with that 90%. I think the Amish are a lot like the military. Okay. It's a very hierarchical system. In the Army, when the colonel tells the sergeant major, this is what you're going to do, there's no question behind it. That's what they do. In the Amish, when the community leader tells the family heads, this is what you're going to do, there's no questioning. That's what they do. But as James pointed out, preppers are by definition almost all type A personalities.
Yeah.
And so to tell somebody this is what you're going to do, if you don't have the leadership skills to motivate them to say, this is what I need to do voluntarily, and you tell them this is what you're going to do, they're not going to do it. So I think that what we see in groups like my group is we depend upon competency. So we allow each person to have their special competency, their area of expertise, and we rely on that person for being the competent person to give us direction on how to best fulfill that. So I think rather than positional or hierarchical structure in a preparedness group, we're looking at competency structures.
Well, there's 2 other things here too that come into play. One, you can't tell people we need to do this or we need somebody to do that. You need to you need to explain what we need, what we need, the goal, not necessarily how we're going to reach the goal, and then let the group kind of jump in and say, well, I think we can do this, or I think I can do that. You can't tell them, well, we're going to do this and we want you people to do this, and that won't work. What you got to do is you got to explain the need and why it's going to help everybody. And the other side of that is you have to also listen to the group and say, well, what do you think we ought to do? Well, this is an issue. What do you think we ought to do, rather than I think we need to do this? Okay. What do you think we ought to do? Okay. Well, the old trick in business management, I don't know if Lee is involved in this, but I made the other guy think it was his idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the best way to do that, and like you're saying, James, the best way to do that is say, guys, here's the problem we're facing. What are your suggestions?
Exactly.
Actually, that's kind of how I got involved in Live Free, because I've known about Live Free since I was a kid. I didn't get involved until a couple of years ago. And the way I got involved as I am now is James put it out there that he needed somebody to manage the print newsletter. I'm a graphic designer. I have worked in print shops. I have been doing print design work for 25 years. So I put my hand up and said, I'll help.
I'm the kind of guy that tries to do everything myself. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Mea culpa. But I finally matured past that. Like, okay, tell everybody what you need. I've had some personal problems, and I put it out there like, I don't know how this thing's technical or this mechanical or whatever. And oh my God. And so I just put it out there on email or Facebook or whatever. And the next thing I can, no problem at all. We'll take care of that for you. And it's amazing, the resources that are out there among your peer group. And it's same thing with your Live Free group or your survival group. It's amazing the stuff that, people go, I did that for 20 years and I got all this equipment. Oh, okay. So I don't have a problem at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to do that. You got to outreach. You got to be open. You got to be truthful. You got to get people involved on their own level, and then help them up. And you'd be surprised and the people that don't get involved, that don't come forward, you don't need them. Don't worry about it. Don't spend. There's an old rule about, and I think it was in Stephen Covey or maybe one of the military things. You don't give the one machine gun to the worst shot. Okay, you give it to the guy that's the best shot. And it's the same thing there. You back up that person that's working, that's really good at stuff. You back them up, and you don't spend a lot of time worrying about the guy that's a screw up.
And if you don't have the inherent capabilities, odds are they will know somebody that they can recommend.
Yep, that's true too. And then I had a guy one time, we had a job in the organization, I forget what it was. And I said, well, it was his job really to do something. He said, well, I can't do that. I said, well, let me get this straight. You're going to learn this computer program, and then you're going to help us do that. I said, just because I don't know it doesn't mean I can't learn how to do it, Well, he didn't do it. He just kind of backed off. But that's the way I put it. Okay, so I can refer you to how you can learn how to do that. He didn't want to do it. But that solved that problem and moved on to somebody else.
Well, let's see. We are almost at the 50-minute mark, and we usually like to keep these to around an hour. So does anybody have any final thoughts?
Well, basically, this has been a really good session. It's good to go over these kind of things. But you're right. We need to get people organized. That's one of the things that Live Free should be helping out. In fact, we should do that other organizing program that I've got to live stream that sometime. But yeah, it's important. These are important lessons that people to know. And by the way, I know you guys know it already. Organizers, public speakers, and teachers are the hardest thing to find. They're 1 in a million. Everybody, you guys are among that. I guess, God help me, I'm one of those. But nevertheless, they're the hardest people to find. We have a couple people that are officers that, in spite of all that, have overcome that for the organization, but they're never comfortable in front of a crowd. But yes, when you seek those people out and you find those people, get them involved, work with them, support them, because they're the core to make everything else happen. My wife and I are initiators. our whole group of friends, they never invite us out for dinner. They never set up a thing where we're going to this restaurant. They never set up a thing where we're going to a concert. It's always us. They just aren't initiators. They like us. They go, oh, why we go? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Yeah, you didn't invite us. You did. Well, oh, we're waiting for you to do it. We're initiators. So let's initiate. I'm not ashamed of it, but it's very rare. It's a rare quality. We can pat ourselves on the back. But it's also a hard road to hoe because you wind up having to do all that. But once you initiate it, you can get all these people involved and focus their powers and their abilities. But yeah, we're initiators.
There's a farming expression, at least here in Central Texas. The best time to plant a peach tree is 3 years ago. The second best time to plant a peach tree is today. And I would say the same thing about mags. The best time to have formed your mag would have been 3 to 5 years ago, so that you're past that honeymoon period. You're understanding what the strengths and weaknesses of everybody is. And you're getting to the point to where we say when we form a team, when we form a group of people, it goes through 4 specific stages. You form, you storm, and storm means you're going to have some disagreements. You're going to have some interpersonal dynamics that you've got to overcome. Then the third phase is you norm. You begin accepting those. You work it out. You find out that the overall mission of the organization is greater than the personalities of the members that are in it. So you start norming. And then the last one is after you've normed, you start performing. So it's forming, storming, norming, performing are the 4 phases of any group. You can't be in a crisis situation while you're storming. You need to get past that as soon as possible. So look for other people who think like you do, okay? Not 100%, because you don't want, that's how you fall into traps. That's how you make mistakes. If everybody thinks the same way, then you don't see the objects that can kill you, okay? You need people who think a little bit different from you, but yet you don't want to be argumentative about those differences. Be careful who you choose. I wouldn't go out and say, hey, I'm forming a prepper group. Would you like to join? Because you may attract bad actors. And you may not have the time to discern that those are bad actors you don't want in your group. I would be a little bit more cautious. I would also be leery. I almost got the wrong letter there. Leery of anybody who is overly ambitious and is not as cautious about you as you are about them.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
If they're overly ambitious and aren't cautious, I would be highly suspect right at the beginning. Okay. Because you got to develop that trust over time. It's not going to be something that's just granted 100% right then and there. So number 1, form quickly. Okay. Go through that storming, norming, and performing phases. Take a look at where you are. Pick your people carefully. Look for skills. Look for where you have absences of skills. Identify the skills that you need. Identify where you have vacancies or absences, and then see if you can't attract somebody who has those skills.
And do some cross training too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna make a quick pitch. Live Free is available nationwide. If you're in the Austin area, we have a chapter starting there that is being organized by Lee and myself. But if you are interested, if you want to get involved, if you want to work with Live Free, go to our AmericanSurvivor.org page /membership and you can join. I will make sure to put a link in the show notes when I get them done. And hopefully we'll see you join. And then in your area, if you've got a couple of people all together and you want to work together, become a chapter and we will help you get organized. We have plenty of literature that will help you get formed, give you some ideas on what you can do. I'd like to thank Lee and James both for coming in. And 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to do our next live stream, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about how to turn all that storage food into something worth eating. We're going to talk about our favorite storage food recipes. and how to modify what you cook now. There you go. How to modify what the way you cook now to fit an off-grid or a grid-down situation, and just general, how to turn nothing into something. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video and hope to see you next time. And until then, good night.
Take care.
Carry on.